I, Joe Biden, former President of the United States, have experienced many things in this life, from various political conflicts to important decisions made for the nation's interests. All of these have prepared me to face challenges. However, nothing could have prepared me for the difficult situation I would encounter in my friendship with Barack Obama, another former president. Our friendship began in the political arena where we collaborated on many projects and initiatives. We shared the same values, had a vision for the future of the country, and always supported each other amid political storms. Yet beyond the political world, we each had our personal lives. As we both stepped into a new chapter of life after our presidencies, new challenges arose. Barack is the type of person who always works hard to achieve his goals. After his term, he decided to pursue his dream and invest in the car he had always wanted, a luxurious black sedan that he took great pride in. The car was not just a vehicle, it was a symbol of all the hard work and sacrifices he had made over the years. Every time he drove it, it reminded him that he had accomplished something significant and could do the things he desired. Meanwhile, I also wanted to feel the freedom of driving again. After a long time without holding the wheel, I had just obtained a new driver's license. But for me, this was not just about driving. I suffer from ADHD, which often makes it difficult for me to concentrate and focus, especially when it comes to driving something valuable like my friend's luxury car. I wanted to feel that freedom again, but there was an anxious feeling clouding my thoughts. One day, I approached Barack with a request that could change everything. "Barack, can I borrow your car for a day?" I asked, trying to sound casual even though my heart was racing. I knew how precious that car was to him, but I also wanted to experience driving again. Barack, with his characteristic smile, looked hesitant for a moment. "Joe, I want you to be careful. This car means a lot to me," he said, implying that he trusted me. I promised to take good care of the car, and after some discussion, Barack finally allowed me to borrow it. As I drove off, a sense of excitement washed over me. The sun shone brightly, and I felt the gentle breeze through the open window. I couldn't help but smile, thinking about how liberating it felt to be behind the wheel once again. However, what should have been a fun day turned into a nightmare. As I was driving the car, I felt the gentle breeze on my face, but suddenly I lost focus. A car sped past me, and before I could react, I crashed into the curb. The sound of metal crunching and shattering glass echoed in my ears. I couldn't believe what had just happened. Barack's car was totaled. I was unharmed, but guilt and regret haunted me. When Barack saw his damaged car, I could see the profound disappointment on his face. "Joe, this is unbelievable," he shouted, his voice trembling between anger and disappointment. "I trusted you, and this is what happens." He looked at me with pained eyes, and at that moment I realized how I had betrayed my friend's trust. It felt like I had not only destroyed a car, but also a bond built over years of camaraderie. In the days that followed, the weight of my actions became unbearable. Barack began to withdraw. He not only distanced himself from me, but also started avoiding communication with our close friends, including Donald Trump, the former president who often acted as a mediator in many situations. Donald, with his flamboyant and often controversial personality, always had sharp insights on various matters. However, in this situation, he tried to be a calming voice. One day, Donald invited both of us to meet at his golf club. "Listen, you two are former presidents," he said, trying to ease the atmosphere. "You can't let a car ruin a friendship that has lasted this long." However, Barack, still angry, replied, "It's not just about the car, Donald. It's about the trust that has been broken." His voice was filled with pain, and I could sense that he was struggling to come to terms with what had happened. Donald tried to take a more diplomatic approach. "How about we look at the positive side?" he suggested. "Joe survived, and this is an opportunity for both of you to rebuild this relationship. We all make mistakes. What matters is how we respond to them." However, Barack remained adamant, feeling that his trust had been betrayed and that he needed time to reflect on everything. Days turned into weeks, and the silence between Barack and me grew heavier. I missed our late-night talks about policy, our laughter over shared memories, and the easy camaraderie that had defined our friendship. I began to understand the gravity of what I had done, not just in terms of the car, but in the rupture of a profound bond. I felt like a ghost in my own life, haunted by the specter of our former friendship. Eventually, after many discussions and attempts to ease the tension, we decided to undergo group therapy as a way to mend our relationship. I invited Barack and Donald to join, hoping that with the help of a professional, we could find a way to communicate openly about our feelings. I was nervous, unsure of how this would go, but I knew it was necessary. In the therapy session, Barack expressed all his emotions. "I feel like all my efforts to get that car, all my work were in vain. And Joe, I feel like you didn't appreciate what mattered to me," he said, his eyes welling with tears. I listened, feeling the weight of the burden he carried. His pain echoed my own guilt, and I felt the urge to reach out and reassure him that I understood. "I never meant to hurt you, Barack," I said, my voice cracking. "I wanted to feel alive again, but I didn't think about how my actions would affect you." I let my desire for freedom overshadow the trust we built. I could see him struggling with his feelings, the conflict between anger and the deep-seated friendship we shared. After the therapy session, we agreed to try to rebuild our trust. I proposed to help Barack get a replacement car by setting aside some of my income and asked Donald to join in this effort. The three of us agreed to collaborate on a savings plan and work together to help Barack achieve his new dream. This process was not easy. There was a lot of tension, guilt, and regret to face. However, over time, we began to feel progress. Barack started to open up again, and while Donald's presence could sometimes spice up our conversations, he remained a good mediator, balancing the situation when emotions ran high. We all learned that friendship, like any relationship, requires effort and communication. The courage to face issues, acknowledge mistakes, and strive for mutual forgiveness is key to strengthening our bond. Each small step we took towards healing helped to mend the rift that had formed. Finally, a few months after the accident, Barack got a new car. He chose a simple yet still elegant sedan car that represented a new chapter in his life and also symbolized our reconciliation. When he invited us to see his new car, there was a sense of joy and relief among us. We knew that although our journey was not perfect, we had weathered this storm together. On that day, in front of Barack's new car, Donald and I raised our glasses. To friendship, I said, and Barack smiled. The laughter that echoed around us felt like a healing balm for the wounds we had endured. We learned that while mistakes can damage, the strength and courage to mend relationships can take us to a better place. And as former presidents, that was the most valuable lesson of all. After the joyful moment celebrating Barack's new car, the three of us felt a resurgence of our friendship. However, the reality of the outside world could not be ignored. The ever-dynamic and controversial politics once again loomed over us, demanding our attention and decisions. A few weeks after that celebration, news about the upcoming elections began circulating. As we know, the political atmosphere is never calm, and each of us had different viewpoints. Barack, with his progressive vision, wanted to focus on social and environmental issues. I, Joe Biden, aimed to emphasize the need for unity in addressing the growing polarization. Meanwhile, Donald, with his characteristic straightforward style, focused on economic policies and maintaining a more conservative approach. One afternoon, we decided to meet at a local cafe that we often visited. As we sat down, a tense atmosphere began to set in. Donald started the conversation. Okay, let's talk about this election. We all know this is a crucial moment for our country, he said while sipping his coffee. I believe we need to return to policies that have proven successful. Barack shook his head. Donald, we can't go back to the old ways. We need to think forward. Issues like climate change, social inequality, all that needs our attention now. Barack's voice rose slightly, reflecting how important it was for him to voice those issues. I could see the passion in his eyes, and it reminded me of why I'd always admired him. I tried to mediate. Look, we all have the same goal to make this country better, but the way we achieve it might differ. We need to respect each other's viewpoints, I said, trying to keep the atmosphere constructive. My heart raced, hoping that our shared history would help us navigate this disagreement. However, the discussion quickly turned into a heated debate. Donald and Barack attacked each other's arguments, while I felt trapped in the middle. I could feel the tension between them, reminiscent of the times when we first found ourselves in conflict. I was painfully aware that our friendship was once again at risk of unraveling. In the midst of the escalating debate, I reminded them of what we had gone through together. Remember when we faced a significant challenge in our friendship, I asked. We managed to weather that storm because we were willing to listen to each other. Let's do the same now. My voice trembled, knowing that if we didn't find common ground soon, we might lose what we had worked so hard to rebuild. Finally, Barack and Donald began to cool off. They realized that despite their differences, they also had common ground, a love for the country and a desire to see our people thrive. Joe, maybe you're right, Donald said, his tone softer. We do need to listen and try to understand each other's perspectives. I felt a rush of relief wash over me. We then continued the discussion more constructively. We started to delve into the issues at hand, discussing potential ways to create better dialogue among our voters. We shared ideas and sought common ground, bringing us closer together. It felt like a breakthrough, a moment where we could finally see beyond our differences and focus on what truly mattered, the welfare of the American people. Days passed, and as the election approached, we agreed to hold a series of meetings where we could share our views and listen to each other's aspirations. We also agreed to support one another in a more positive way. No matter who ultimately got elected, we wanted to ensure that we could all work together for the good of the people. One night, the three of us decided to host a charity event where we would talk about important issues and invite the community to engage in discussions. The event was not just about politics, but also about rebuilding trust among the people. We wanted a platform where all voices could be heard, where citizens felt valued and engaged in the democratic process. When the night of the event arrived, the atmosphere was vibrant. Many people gathered, and as we took the stage, I felt a deep sense of pride. We may have differed in many ways, but that night we united for a greater purpose. We spoke about the importance of unity, tolerance, and the commitment to listen to one another. After the event concluded, we received many compliments from attendees. You three showed that even with our differences, we can come together and work for a better future, one attendee remarked. I couldn't help but smile, knowing that we had not only shared our beliefs, but had also demonstrated the power of friendship and understanding.